Okay, okay. I got off the fishing boat and we had it up on the waves, so I lived on the fishing boat up in Tarpon Springs. We moved down to there from Pensacola, Florida. And it was a little fishing boat. There's usually 3 of us that went out. We stayed anywhere from 12 to 14, 15 days or so, until I rebuilt the boxes where we could hold the ice longer. And then we started going like for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, all down around Campeche Banks and up and down there for the small snapper, because they paid much more at the fish houses and so forth. Anyway, we were up on the waves, so I had some time and I met a couple of guys, and they were renting a little house down at the Indian Rocks Beach. You know, it'd be nice to have a place to stay and take a shower. So I was splitting the rent with 2 other people down there. And it just happened to be about 2 streets down from where Ralph and Stella lived. It was down in Indian Rocks Beach. But it was just, there's only one main road as you go down, and all the other roads turn off to the left, because to the right it's all beach. So we were there, and these guys lived in the area and had a lot of friends, and so it was a Saturday night or something, I guess, and we were having a beer party, you know, with music playing, and the neighbors loved it because there were older people who lived on both sides. And the police car came by one night, you know, and said, "Shut it down." And, you know, I'm pretty arrogant when it comes to police. I told them, "Get off my property now, I'll throw you off." And we shut the door and went on with our party, and they knocked on the door again, and, you know, I said, "Everybody stand back." And I got back to the end of the living room, and I just charged that door, and I tore the whole center panel out of the door, and it went right on the cop, and he fell down, and I was just running right off the property. You know. They called 4 or 5 more out to take us in, and they couldn't get me. There was about 6 of them. And they called all the way up to Tarpon Springs. I had a real good friend living on the police force up there. He said, "They called all the way up here, wanted to know if we had any extra people." And I told them no, and they got the address, and I knew it was you, right? Well, finally gave up and went ahead and went to jail, you know, with them. And they were going across the causeway there, and they stopped the vehicle and pulled it down on the side of the causeway, and they had my hands handcuffed in back of me. And they got down there and opened the door up and dragged me out and just started beating on my head and stuff with, you know, the slapjacks and so forth and everything. They all these neat scars here and here and here and so forth. So they threw me in the back of the car, and while they were out there smoking a cigarette, I got my hands down underneath my feet and up here, and hit them underneath my shirt like this, you know, and after back I was just about out of it. Well, they got back in the vehicle, and the sergeant was driving, a uniformed police, and the saddest was the plainclothesman. He got in the back of the car with me, and so we're driving. We're right in the middle of the causeway. There's no way off. You know, water on both sides. And I just put my hand out and wham! Threw him down, took his gun, and I'm in the back seat with this guy's gun, you know, telling him, "What's going on back there?" I said, "Listen." And I clicked it right up next to his head there, and I said, "You hear that?" I said, "If you just hesitate anywhere, you know." So they took me right to the jail, and I marched them both in. And then I had a good friend that was a good friend of the judge, and I called up the judge. Had kept them all at gunpoint inside there, and got the phone from him and called the judge up and told him what happened. And he said, "Well, go ahead and give him the gun back." And he says, they're under investigation. They won't be there very long. He said, "This ain't the first time." So I said, "Okay." So I gave him the gun back, and they threw me in jail. But anyway, I got kind of known in the neighborhood, so to speak. So the next week or so, we had another party. They didn't file no charges, didn't do anything. And Libby came over with a girlfriend of hers. They were in junior college down there. And when she walked in, I don't know why. She was a smart aleck. She had a mustache, you know, glued on. and some weirdest clothes, you know. And I would just, you know, we went outside, and I just couldn't get over it. The attachment I had to her didn't make any sense at all, none. And the next day, I just went back up to Tarpon and sat around. I said, I don't understand this. I just said, I'm taking a day. I'm not eating. I'm not drinking anything. I'm just going to sit here and try to figure out what in the world is going on to this girl. Why I don't have any attachment to her. Why do I feel this way? You know. And I went back down to the house, and she came over. And I said, what do your parents do? Oh, he follows some weird guy in India, you know, because she's had to put up with this the whole time in school, you know. She was always pointed out, your dad's some kind of Buddhist or something, you know. And it's not the most popular thing in the middle of rural Florida. So she took me over to her house, and I walked in. It was about 12:30 or 1 o'clock at night, because Ralph worked as a waiter, and he was at the kitchen table there sorting out all his tip money, you know, and piles and so forth when we walked in. And he was very forgiving of her. He would always say to her, don't wake your mother, you know, when she come in, you know, a little drunk or whatever. So I walked in, and he was at the kitchen table, and there was a little divider wall there between the living room and the kitchen breakfast nook, sort of like. And on the mantel of it was a picture of Baba, a photograph in a frame. And when I walked in, that's all I saw. I said, who is that? Who is that right there? And Ralph went, he said, you sure you really want to know? And I said, yeah, I need to know. I need to know. And he told me, you know, and on the other side of the bookcase, it was a little wall, but the other side of it was a bookcase. And it was full of Baba books. And they had a couch right there, you know, just across the wall from me. I slept on their couch and read for 3 days. They fed me. They didn't let me use the bathroom, and I just read, you know, book after book after book. This is why I was here, you know, the whole thing. And I took the everything and the nothing out with me on the next trip, because it was beautiful weather, and it was so easier to read when there's no distraction, everything and nothing, sky and ocean. That's all you can see, so you could get your consciousness around it, you know. And I had, up to that point, been through a lot. I'm in the 1945 True Detective magazine. My name is in there as being this child that this woman kidnapped, you know. And then while they had her arrested, she made bail and took off and left me with them. And she went out to Arizona and kidnapped another one, a kid. And then they caught her back in Chicago again, and they got the kid back. And then the authorities said, well, what about this other kid that she had? What do we do with him, you know? So they sent her back to the area of Kentucky that had family of hers, you know, and she was already wanted there on 4 or 5 different counts of prostitution and robbery and et cetera, et cetera. And her story about where I came from was just different every time they asked. And first she said that I was her child, and then doctors examined her, she's never had a child. And then she said, well, the fat lady that performed as the 4-legged woman, you know, or something on the circus there, she had 6 kids and just gave me one. Well, they couldn't trace that anywhere. And then she said, well, there was there was an alcoholic doctor there, is what her first story was, that when I had the child, he just delivered the baby. But then they said, so she didn't really, nobody ever found out. So the FBI, it was on the wire service and everything. And my name is in that. At the end of this story of her kidnapping his kid in Arizona, my name came out the very last paragraph or two. We have a kid here named Ray Nelson that was with her when we arrested her. Where does he go? So they sent me back to the same area, I guess, in Kentucky, because they put me in they had an orphanage for kids that were 5 and under, that was 10 miles up the road from the big orphanage, and it was all state orphanages. And so they put me in there for about 6 months or so, and I had a birthday or something, and I was eligible to go down to the other big orphanage when I was 6. And then they took me to a doctor, and I just read this when I was getting ready to have my other birthday, thinking I'm going to be 77 on September the 3rd. But I'm sitting down reading through this stuff, and here's this dentist saying, no, this boy wasn't born in 39, he was born in 38. So I lost a year, immediately. He's got his adult molars. He's got to be 6. So, but they had no paperwork on me anyway, so there was nothing to change. I had no birth certificate, no background, no nothing. So they just left it that way. I mean, they left my age at 6 years old or 5 years old or whatever, that's why I never quite remember how old I am, and I'm not real good with names, because we had 40 boys. We grew up with 40 boys and one house mother, and everything was by the whistle. I mean, you get up in the morning when they blow the whistle, and you run down to the basement and you wash up and you clean up and you do your things, and there was only a core of us, maybe. Of those 40 boys, only about 5 of us that we knew we were never going anywhere. All of the rest of the kids, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, whatever, until the court agreed that the parents were clean and weren't drug addicts anymore, and so forth. And they come and get them, But so there was always an interchange of all the rest of the gang. But they blow a whistle, and we lived out in the fields, out in the field. We had a big old German Shepherd that would not allow an adult to get near us, even the ones that worked there. They start to come out there, that dog would get in front of him and just start growling. And we did everything we could do to that dog. We, buried it, poked it, and and it'd get enough sometimes that it'd just push us over and lay on us for a while. Wouldn't let us up. But I decided I was going to run away. I was 13 years old. I'm ready to face the world now. We planned this for about a month. We're hiding food, we're getting this and that, we're getting another nice short that we could put on, and we could tie our overalls down here like we had real pants or something, I mean, we planned the whole thing, all of us. And somebody packed my bed up there for night bed count and stuff. And I stayed out and laid in the grass when they blew the whistle on the summer night. They used to leave us stay out just about the dark playing. If we didn't have beans to shell and stuff that they'd bring around on the porches. And I got up and ran across the highway and got down on the railroad tracks. Now, you get a bunch of boys together, and how do you hop a train? Train's going pretty fast. Well, this is what you have to do, right? We all figured it out. You got to hold your wrist here, or when you grab that ladder that goes by, it'll jerk your arm out of the socket, right? We got it all down pat. I'm standing there, and this thing's going by 70 miles an hour. I ain't touching that thing. It just jerk your whole body apart if you grabbed anything. So I walked down the track. I got no shoes and barefooted. And it was just getting fall. and just getting a little chilly at night. And my feet were full of calluses, so it didn't really hurt me, but I had little cuts all over it. And I came down, I saw a little fire down there. I went down there, there was about 3 hobos down there cooking up some stuff, you know, and I just sat down like that's where I belong, you know. And he said, "Where you headed, boy?" I said, "I'm headed for Texas." I said, "How do you get on one of these trains?" And they gave me a little food, and he says, "Well, you can't get on it until you, about another 5 miles down the way here. There's a little station that slows up down there. Down there is where you can jump in. Now, don't get in that gravel car. You go sleep down in that gravel car. They open that thing up sometimes and let the gravel out on the track." Okay, so they fed me this and that, and good luck, boy. All right. I was just one of the boys, you know. So I walked, and sure enough, I got to a place where this train slowed down. I jumped up on it, and I got up in that car that I got in, and it was a gravel car. And I'm a little tired and sleepy by then, and I tried to fall asleep on that little angled area there, but I woke up and I'm laying right in the gravel down there. There wasn't much in it, it was just a small amount at the bottom. I figured, well, maybe then I'm going to dump this, you know. And it run all night, and it finally stopped, and I got out of it and snuck over, and there's this little town, and I'm standing in front of this hardware store that's got saddles, horse bridles, and reins, and lassos and everything. All right, I'm in Texas now. And it's just barely breaking dawn, and the police car pulls up. And says, "Where are you from?" And I wouldn't tell him. They took me in and bought me ice cream and some food, and kept on trying to get me tell them where I was from, and I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it till about, I guess it was about 10 o'clock or something that next morning there, and I finally told them, yeah, I'm from Kentucky Children's Home, and they called them. God, it was like a 6-7 hour drive to come and get me. Boy, were they mad. I was 13 years old. And they brought me back. And the superintendent's he got one of those razor strap things, you know, that's what he used to whoop us. And he says, "I'll only give you 3 licks. If you say you're sorry you did it." I said, "I ain't sorry, and I ain't saying it." And he whooped me. And he whooped me again. "You better say it, I'm going to keep on whipping you." I said, "I ain't saying it, so you might as well keep on." He whipped me for quite a while. He got too tired after a while. Then at the back of the little clinic down at the end of the orphanage, there was a little room that they kept dark. Because back in them days, if you get the measles, you're not supposed to get your eyes in the light because you might go blind. So when you had the measles, they'd put you in there for 3 days or so and feed you. They put me in the dark room, and every once in a while he'd come down and ask if I was ready to say I was sorry. I said, "No." So I stayed in there about 2 weeks, and then they let me out. They give up on me. Then I was back in the orphanage again. I guess about a year later, these people, they asked me, "You want to be adopted?" Well, I wanted to get out, you know. I said, I guess so. And so they took me up to these people in Lexington, Kentucky, named the Appleys. My name was Ray Nelson then, when I was the orphan. And he contributed a lot of money to the Presbyterian Church, and he was an upstanding citizen in the local community somewhat. He had a store down on Main Street, a Brooks Brothers clothing store he ran. Had been with them for 30-some years or more. She was an Aston from Pennsylvania who married below her station and was always trying to work it out where she could get into the higher society area in Lexington. It was in Lexington they took me to. And I was 12, I guess almost 13, somewhere right in that area, you know. And there was a kid there that was already adopted by them, Harold. And after being there a week or two and getting to know him and all, he told me these people are strange. If you want to go to college and they've got enough money and stuff like that. He said, but I've been here for 3 years. I'm taking off and changing my name and not telling anybody where I'm going. You know, I'm going up to Virginia, and I wanted you to know that it's nothing to do with you. I hated to see him go. But he took off, and I was in school, and you know, we were very healthy kids. I mean, we raised all of our own food and stuff and everything. And I found, good God, I'm, you know, about twice as healthy as all of these kids in my school and my own class and stuff. And they sent me to school, and he runs the Brooks Brothers clothing store. You know what they sent me to school in? A tweed sport coat with a button-down collar shirt and slacks and some expensive shoes. You know what everybody else was wearing? Blue jeans and a t-shirt. I'm sitting in this class and they're throwing spitballs at me and laughing and, you know, all of this. And I kind of, you know, went along with it for a little while, and then I finally said, you know, stop it now. Yeah, and what are you going to do about it? You know, it's like the 7th grade or 6th grade or something. Said, when recess comes, we're going to get you. So I go out at recess, and sure enough, they're gathered around, and the bully, the blonde-haired, kind of heavy-set bully, he come up to me, and I said, you know, if there's going to be trouble if you do that anymore to me. Yeah, and what are you going to do about it? And he said, we're going to kick your butt. Well, I just, wham, I hit him. And he went down and was knocked out. And then I panicked, God, I'm going to have to go to jail or something. And we got him awake and everything, and he went, the high school was right next to us, you know, across the parking lot. He went over there, and he went to get his big brother. And his big brother is a senior, and he's on the football team, and he's the fullback. And he come over, and, you the one that hit my brother? I said, I had to. He wouldn't stop, and they were throwing stuff at me, and he said, well, I'm going to kick your butt. And I just hauled off and hit him right under the chin, and it knocked him out. And he falls down on the ground there, and then I know, oh God, no, you know. They got him awake and everything, and he got up and just shook his head and stuff. He said, y'all get along now, and he left. But I started reading about Edgar Casey, about reincarnation. Started out with Norman Vincent Peale's stuff, how you can affect people by listening to them and being interested in their life, and practicing that some and finding out, my God, it's incredible, you know. I had an 8th grade education. Got all of the Reader's Digests and did all of the word powers and read. And then somewhere along the way, got hold of a Bhagavad Gita and began saying God's name. We're working along. I've been in there about 2.5 years or so. And whistle blew, time to get your tools up and get in the truck. So we put tools up and I'm just standing there, and what's wrong with you, ape? They call me apes because I lifted weights for the whole time I was there on a standard routine every other day. You know, we went through our whole thing. I had 16-inch biceps and 52-inch chest and weighed about 208 pounds, you know. And in prison, there's always a clique and a boss man, and he's usually a big healthy, and he always wanted to kind of, didn't know whether to confront me or not, but always wanted. But this next time that whistle blew, we started to get on the truck. I said, I'm leaving. I'm getting out. What makes you say that? I said, I have no idea. I just know. It just hit me. I'm leaving. Quickly. Yeah, right. You know, you're going to run? I said, no. I don't know what it is, but I'm leaving this place. I'm leaving this prison very quickly. We got on the truck and we went through the main gates, and everybody got off, counted, and all went in. There's a bulletin board there, and they ran over to the bulletin board and they said, my God, he's leaving tomorrow. I didn't even run and look. I just knew it. They set me out there with a suit on, $10 bill, and a bus ticket to Pensacola, Florida. You got a job on the Miss Miami commercial fishing boat. He said, you need somebody? He said, look at this. He said, I got a whole pile right here. These people have been eligible for parole for years. And he says, they can't find jobs for them. And he picked it up, and it was me. And he said, this kid here, I don't know why they gave him 7 years. He had no record. He'd never done anything. He's an old prisoner. He'd been eligible for parole. Like 6 months to 7 years is how they pronounce it, so that they can use that. You're not going to get paroled if you don't follow the line, And I said, well, can I have him? And he said, sure. So that's how I ended up on a fishing boat, and I lived on the boat. And by then I was very into, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, and I just didn't want to be involved in society, so it couldn't have been any better. I'd be 2 weeks and nothing but ocean and sky. I loved it. I just loved it. Within a year or two, within about 3 years, I was, didn't smoke, but, drink. You can't be in the Tarpon Springs among the Greeks there without, But anyway, that's where I was when I met Libby. And then I went in and met Baba. And he has a way of hooking you. I quit fishing because the period of adjustment when we got married was stretching out, because you have a 3-day argument and then you're gone for 2 weeks, can't remember what it was, so you're having to space out all this period of adjustment. So I finally quit, went to work in the local boatyards, and the skipper had quit too. I went on another boat for a while because it got really bad. I mean, we were getting red tides almost every year or every fall or something like that in certain areas. And I've seen belly up dead fish as far as the eye could see all through the Gulf. It was really, it got to be, it just wasn't any fun anymore for any of it. He quit too. He went back to running the party boats out of John's Pass, and I was first mate for him off and on, but I worked in another boatyard, Pasadena Marina. And that's when Ralph was going up to the center and stuff. So he made us promise I was gonna go back this way to get back away from the ocean, because I'd had enough of the ocean. And Libby loves the ocean, but he made us promise to stop at the center. So I bought this beautiful, from an old lady that only drove it to church every Sunday, Lincoln Continental, light tan with leather seats and push buttons. And back then that was real luxury. And I drove it up here, and we stopped at the center, and we were staying on the center. So kept getting a little more involved, and I said, I'm going to get stuck here if I don't get out of here. After about a week, I said, we're leaving today. I'm going to take the car out and gas it up and check the oil and get it ready. So it was about 8:30 in the morning. I pulled out of the center, and I'm on 17. It's just little bit before the season started. There wasn't a car in sight either way. And I'm driving down the right lane, down to the nearest station, which was quite a little ways. And here comes this car behind me. I'm seeing it in the mirror, you know. Must be doing 80. Just straight on. He's in my lane. There's 2 lanes there. He's not moved over. Come right down there and slammed right into the back of me. I'm doing about 45, I guess. Just wham! It hit me so hard that it jarred the head gasket started blowing out, you know. I knew there was nothing we could do to fix the car. He got out and said, "Where did you come from?" I said, "I've been here ever since the spiritual center gate, which was almost a mile up the road." He said, "You weren't there. There was nothing in front of me. Nothing." He said, "I didn't know what happened to my car when it came to a big banging stop." He said, "There was nothing in front of me." And he was an auxiliary policeman for the last beach up there, whichever it was, that his season hadn't started yet for his, you know, to be the auxiliary police, but he had no insurance on it. And he calls up, I said, "Shouldn't we call the state police or something, get an accident report?" He called up, and the other cop that was working at Surfside up there, he came down and he said, "This didn't happen." He said, "If you know what's good for you, you better get that, you know, just let it go." Well, I called Miss Patterson, and she called down there, and she got us $200. So that was with the other $100 I had was all we had. So she let me live on the center until I found a job and a place to work. And I went out there. Hague Marina out here was putting in a travel lift to pull boats out. And I went out there and helped put that in and started pulling boats and repairing them and so forth. So we lived here maybe 2.5 years or more. And it was a wonderful period of time. So it was way before the hippies started coming down from Chapel Hill. And it was the time when these old people from up in New York, something on the Hudson or whatever, were all down there in the kitchen. The old kitchen was all there was. So every Sunday we were in there with the yachts and us and the fellow that was the groundskeeper then,
Frank Eaton?
The Eatons. I think I'm terrible. I've had a couple of strokes, and they accidentally let me die, and oxygen deprivation happened. And my wife came into the recovery room, and I was dead, and she yelled, and they ran in there. But the anesthesiologist had accidentally went through a hiatal hernia on the top of my stomach, and nobody knew it because he was just doing the shot to relax my heart before the operation. So they opened me up and sewed me back when they did the bypass. And my stomach, bowel, and blood came out and filled up both my lungs and shut them down. So I died. And they wouldn't let Libby in for 20 minutes, you know, in the recovery room. When she came in, I was dead. And oxygen was below, he said, this gauge only goes to 15%. And he said, it's bottomed out. So he looked at Libby and he said, you know, he's going to have some brain damage. And she just straight, how will I be able to tell? So that happened. It's been about 12 years ago. Yeah. Since then, I fell off of here and fell off of there. But we met the people from Chapel Hill, and we got to know them. We went up and lived with John Gunn for a week or two until we got to working and got a place to stay. And we opened a reading room, and the two drug people, what's his name, Dr. the
Timothy
LSD.
Timothy Leary and
Timothy, not him, but
Alan.
Alan Cohen and the other quiet
Dick
fellow.
Anthony or
Dick Anthony was there too, but they stayed with us. They came up and stayed with us and gave their talks and stuff. And we opened a reading room and we had wonderful times up there. There's a bar on every corner, so we had a lot of long night discussions with people. A lot of people heard about Baba, through that period. And I was in construction up there. I built up there, and it was a wonderful time for building because there was a lot of innovative building and solar stuff and stuff like that. So it was, and a lot of professors that wanted unique things. And I worked on straight conforming houses for 6 or 7 years, and then went off on my own and started doing everything you could think of, domes and solars and designing rentals and throwing them together and stuff like that. A wonderful time. And I came down here and built Ralph's house for him so he could move up here. And while I was here, Frank McNutt, I don't know if you remember them or not, but they wanted a solar house built in Briarcliff, 4,000 square foot, fully solar. I built that. I had fun doing that. And then while we were doing that, we just finished that. Miss Patterson asked me to enlarge the meeting room at the center. So it was a little 14 foot by 32 foot. So I took that whole wall out and built those huge trusses right there on the platform and put them up. Got a crane to put them up there and did that work too. And then it got kind of burnt out in Chapel Hill because it's exploding so much, and we decided to go. When we went to Arkansas, it was the only state in the United States that the population was decreasing every year. I said, sounds good to me. It was wonderful. We went up there and got a job for $3.35 an hour, boy. Those people wouldn't let anybody touch anything on their home till they got to know them. I ended up rebuilding all of their cabinet work in their offices, and then they started taking me to their house to redo their kitchen cabinets and fix their roofs and stuff. I thought, I can do that for more than $3.35 an hour. Exciting times there, and I got to know the people at the lumber companies and started getting a lot of work, and a lot of work from doctors and lawyers in Little Rock and Memphis and stuff coming up there building vacation homes. And getting to design them all myself and do whatever I wanted. Really fun, really fun. And we hadn't gotten to the center a lot since we've been out there, but this is.
How does it feel to be back?
This was to be the time we come to the center with no commitments anywhere about anything, because with her folks living here, we couldn't. We had to stay with them and just go to the center programs and stuff, but to actually have a period of time that we could just walk around as strangers and, but that didn't work either. We've been out almost every day. We've been out with some of our friends that have moved here and people that we knew 30, 40 years ago and so forth. So, but we've thoroughly enjoyed it, and we'll be going back Monday morning.
Well, I hope you come back soon.
And we say our prayers every morning. We have a painting that Enoch did. It's about 44 inches wide and I guess maybe 60 inches long, almost 5 feet of Baba. That photograph of Baba there where his hand is sticking out like this somewhat, He started it before he went to India. And he finished it when he got back, because we were here, when that happened. We were living here when that happened. And we came home one day, it was around Christmas, and we came into the little apartment we were renting in the wintertime. It was very cheap, out in Long Bay Estates out there. And when we came in, there was that painting there with a big bow on it. Then Merry Christmas, We've had it forever. Yeah. So we do our prayers every morning in front of it and play Baba music while we have our couple of cups of coffee.